Opening bell.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Meeting starts.
Rotarian, please all rise for the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First,
is it true?
Second,
Is it fair of our concern?
third, fourth. Please be seated. Rotary song. Yes.
R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary. R-O-T-A-R-Y is known on land and sea. From north to south, from east to west, big profit small, who serve the best. R-O-T-A-R-Y, that spells Rotary.
Thank you, editors.
Welcome.
Introduction of distinct Rotarians and other guests. Catherine.
Hello everyone. Let's welcome today's speaker, Adam Bell. And also Kyoko spouse from.
Thank you, Catherine. President's time.
Good afternoon, my fellow Rotarians, and thank Adam, and also welcome Ron to join us today. For this week, it's also our regular badminton practice, but I'm sorry for my absence, and I also lost the chance to meet Energy's young son, just back from the States, Aaron. It looks like they had a great time. Hopefully I can be back next week. And that's my part of today. Thank you.
Secretary's time. Okay, joint board meeting will be held at the Bistro 88 next Wednesday at 11:30. All board members, please reserve your time to attend. Induction ceremony. The president, please come to the stage to witness the oath. And our new members, Jose Energy and Serena, please come to the stage. Okay, oath of membership. Repeat after the president.
Okay, Rotary Club of Taichung Dathong, member affiliation, swearing in oath. I hereby swear in all sincerity to affiliate with Rotary Club of Taichung Dathong.
You have to repeat after me.
So we all read together.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
One more microphone, please.
Okay, thank you.
The first.
Okay.
I hereby swear in all sincerity to affiliate with Rotary Club of Taichung Dathong as a member from now until abide by object and by laws of Rotary. Also to accept the four-way test under the vow to serve the community and society with all efforts. Hereby swear the oath. Swearing in member, Rotarian Serena.
Oh, energy.
Presentation of Rotary pins, tie and scarf. 颁发福伦勋章领带与丝巾。
么弄？我要冰一点。我在问他。4.2颗。对。这是今年2122的21。Material. Yes. 啊，你说什么 ？OK。还有。先还他，还有。
Presentation of object of Rotary and the banner of Rotary Club 台中大同，颁发扶轮宗旨与大同扶轮社的社旗。
还要找一张纸。
还要喊哦，喊名字哈。
先给你，然后再给他。辛苦你了。还有什么？哦，对，我还要准备礼物。
Presented to the new members. Now, let's check our new members' Rotary name 3 times, one by one. Start from Jose. 1, 2, 3. Jose. Next, energy. 1, 2, 3. Energy. Now, Serena. Welcome.
剩下的我等一下。
Program. Speaker introduction. Coco, would you please introducing the speaker for us?
I'm delighted to introduce Mr. Adam Bell. So he is the Global Director of Business Enhancement and Services at Global Water Solutions. He has 2 decades of experience in developing, manufacturing, and distributing drinking water treatment systems and equipment. Early in his career, he lived and worked in mainland China, where he set up and managed the sourcing operations, factories, and distribution centers in Shenzhen, Kunshan, Shanghai, and Qingdao. In 2013, he relocated to Taichung and began overseeing business initiatives across the greater Asia-Pacific region, as well as in Europe, Africa, India, and the Americas. He currently serves as a board member for the American Chamber of Commerce in Taichung and is a frequent guest lecturer at both Donghai and Providence universities. Please welcome Adam Bell.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so once again, thank you all for inviting me. Thank you, Kyoko, for that nice introduction. Thank you, President, for all that you do. You're doing great. I think I know some of you from other outside activities, but for those that you don't know me, again, my name is Adam Bell. I've been in Taichung now for roughly 9 years, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. I think you have a wonderful city here. It's second home to me, and I really have fallen in love with the city, the people, the culture, the language, everything, especially the food. So thank you once again. Today I would like to come to you as a representative from my company, Global Water Solutions. We are a multinational corporation that manufactures and distributes water systems, drinking water systems, equipment, componentry, these types of products. And we also provide services throughout the world. We are currently manufacturing products in Qingshui district, that's where I'm located. And our factory is producing products that are shipped to approximately 120 countries worldwide. We have manufacturing in the US, we have manufacturing in mainland China, and we are distributing our products through 13 subsidiaries located in Costa Rica, UK, Italy, Turkey, South Africa, India, Korea, and then we also have many distribution partners and OEM customers that are scattered around the globe. And all of us are working together to provide safe, clean drinking water to the people of the world. So today I would like to talk to you a little bit about our local water situation. I have done some research on Taichung water as well as kind of greater Taiwan water quality, and talk a little bit about this issue with you all. I hope that you find it interesting and informative. I think it's a very critical aspect of our life, water. We all, have glasses of tea or soup or water in front of us, so we're using water constantly. We're drinking water. We're using water, and it's a very, very important part of our life. So, without further ado, I will start my presentation. So, the first question I will ask you is, what is in a glass of water? When you look at a glass of water, you generally see a clear liquid. It has no taste for the most part. It doesn't have any color, it doesn't have anything in it. It looks like just pure H2O. But in fact, a glass of water can contain many, many things. A glass of water can have gases, it can have suspended solids, it can have dissolved solids, it can contain organic chemicals, it can contain bacteria, viruses, many different things can be found in a glass of water. It really depends on where the water comes from, but generally speaking, a glass of water is not just water. It's many, many things. Here's a chart. Now, I don't know if I'll have enough time to kind of go through the chemistry with you all, and I don't know if you have the patience to sit through a chemistry lesson, so I won't bore you with the details. But this chart here gives you kind of a representation of all the different types of substances and compounds, biological contaminants that can be found in a single glass of water. You have physical properties, you have small sediments like dirt, sand, rust, pipe scale, things like that. You can also have many types of biological things, bacteria, microorganisms. You can have different types of dissolved minerals. There's many types of minerals, heavy metals. You can have gases, H2S, chlorine, all these types of things can be found in the water. Now, if we talk about Taichung, and right now we're in Xichu, I believe, and we have Xitun, where I live, I understand that our water primarily comes from the reservoir in Dongshi. And that water comes out of the mountains. It comes from the central mountain range. Most of it's rainfall. The rain falls onto the mountains. The water flows through streams into a river. The river then collects into the Dongshi reservoir. And from there, the water is piped to a water treatment plant in Fengyuan. In the Fengyuan water treatment plant, it goes through many types of processes to clean the water, to remove the contaminants, to disinfect the water, to make sure that it's safe and clean and potable. When it comes out of the Fengyuan water treatment plant, it is very clean water. It has virtually no contaminants, there's no bacteria, there's no microbiological things that are making it unsafe for us to consume. However, that water, once it leaves the factory, it then travels many, many kilometers to get to our kitchens or our offices or wherever we're drinking the water, maybe here in the Evergreen Hotel. So that water will travel through underground pipes. It will travel for many, many kilometers, 10, 15 kilometers, and then it will arrive at a water tower, like the one here on the bottom left. That's in Daya. That's the Daya Shuita. And that water will be stored there and pressurized, and then from there, it'll again make another journey through many more pipes to a building. And once it arrives at the building, it will then travel through the pipework of the building, and it will make its way generally to the top of the building where it's stored in a metal tank. And there it will sit until you need the water, at which time you turn on your tap, you turn on your shower, you wet your toothbrush, you fill your coffee pot, whatever you're doing, that water is now arrived. And now you have the water. So on that journey from the water treatment plant, where the water is very clean and pure and safe, now it has traveled many kilometers to come to your kitchen sink. And this water now will have picked up many, many passengers along the way. And now you are going to enjoy that water, but you're also probably going to get some of those passengers. Now, what are some of the things that are in the water? In order for us to understand this, we need to conduct a water quality analysis. So generally what we'll do is we'll call either the Environmental Protection Bureau, Taichung has an office, and I've listed the telephone number here for those of you who are interested in calling them. And you can call the EPB office, and they will send you a sample kit. You can then take a sample, just open up your kitchen tap, fill a small vial, and then send it back to them. They charge you around 1,000 NT dollars, and for that, they will do a water quality analysis test, and they will test to see what is in that water. And usually they'll find things like chlorine, they'll find some minerals, they'll find some trace contaminants, some metals, these types of things. And they will report back to you with a printed form that shows all the different contaminants that are in the water. So, as an example, we have here some water samples that were taken from Taipei, from Taichung, and from Kaohsiung. And I've listed the different minerals or metals that are in the water. So the first one you see there is arsenic. So in Taiwan, the regulation, the maximum limit for arsenic in Taiwan is 0.01 milligrams per liter. So if you have 1 liter bottle on your table and 0.1 milligrams of arsenic is acceptable to the Taiwan regulation. You can see the water sample in Taipei, they had an ND, that means non-detected. That means they could not find any arsenic in that water. The Taichung sample was also an ND. Now, just to clarify, Taichung smallest unit detectable. So this column here, this is showing the lab's ability to test down to the smallest amount. So this is the smallest level that they could detect to. And in this lab, they found no arsenic. But here you can see in the Kaohsiung sample, we did have a 0.0002 milligram of arsenic in a liter of water. So southern Taiwan, especially kind of the Pingdong area, Kaohsiung area, has had a long history of arsenic. If you go back to the 1950s, you can learn all about people that had a disease called Blackfoot disease. And there was a hospital in Tainan, it's very famous for having to amputate people's legs because they were getting arsenic poisoning from the water. And they were generally getting the water from the underground sources. They were drilling wells, they were pumping the water up, and they were getting the water and drinking it. And over time, the arsenic would accumulate in their bodies, and it would lead to this disease. Now, there's many other types of heavy metals that you can see here. So we have lead, selenium, chromium, cadmium, barium, antimony, nickel, etc. So all of these are, somewhat non-detected, well, except for these two here. In Kaohsiung, we also had some of this. And you can see down here, the last one, number 11, that's nitrites. So nitrites, the maximum limit is 0.1 milligrams per liter. But you can see here in our Taichung sample, we had 3.7. And in Kaohsiung, we had 7.2. So it's quite high when you look at this number. So it gives you an idea that, generally speaking, the water quality, although it may be safe when it's leaving the water treatment plant, once it arrives in your kitchen, at your kitchen tap, where you go to fill your coffee pot or wash your vegetables, or in your bathroom when you go to wet your toothbrush and brush your teeth, all of this will have some amount of contaminant in the water. So, what can we do? We can generally look at a chart like this. And again, I don't want to bore you with too many technical details, but what this is showing here is a Micron chart. So this talks about the different types of filtration methods. So if you want to filter out these types of things here, we have fine sand, human hair, pollen, blood cells, things like that. Things that you can see, in the water. You can use common particle filtration. So this is a very basic type of filtration. You can go to the Wujinhang, the hardware store, you can buy a filter, you can install it, and it'll take out most of these types of things here. If you get smaller, you can take out bacteria, you can take out asbestos, you can take out dust, paint, these types of things with microfiltration. And then further down, with ultrafiltration, you can remove things like viruses, proteins, carbon black, smog, that's kind of like smoke particles, these kinds of things. You can take that with ultrafiltration. And then you have nanofiltration. With nanofiltration, you can get even smaller. And then with reverse osmosis, you can pretty much get everything else. And so reverse osmosis, generally speaking, is what we would consider the safest way of cleaning the water. So with a reverse osmosis system or an RO system, you're going to be able to remove all of the contaminants. No matter if they're these big particles over here, the smaller and smaller and smaller particles, once you get down to reverse osmosis level, you're going to be able to remove the salts, the sugars, you'll be removing atomic radiuses, metal ions, all of this kind of stuff. So if we go back one slide, all of these contaminants here will be completely removed with a reverse osmosis system. And I think in Taiwanese or in Chinese, we call that the Nisan To. So this is the RO system. All right, so when we're talking about drinking water filtration or purification, generally we're talking about different types of options on the market. So if you guys were to go to a store like Teliwu, or you go to Xinguang Sanyue, and you go to Top City, any of these stores, they will have a section where they're selling various types of water filtration or water purification systems, and there's many types available. So you have kind of a traditional style reverse osmosis system, which has 5 stages. It has a pre-filter, it has some carbon filters, it has a reverse osmosis membrane. These types of systems are probably the most recognized, the most affordable. Generally, they're kind of the go-to system for removing all these types of contaminants. And then you have some slightly fancier type systems. You have ones that are in nice cases that look very pretty, that maybe you want to put on a kitchen shelf and show your friends. When I was traveling in India, doing a lot of water type stuff, in India, it's very popular to put your reverse osmosis system in your living room. Because when you have guests come over, you want to show them that the water that you're serving them is very clean and safe and these kinds of things. Likewise, we have a very big operation in South Africa now. We're supplying all kinds of water treatment systems into the South African market and up into kind of sub-Saharan Africa. And again, it's a very popular thing to promote or to show your neighbors and your friends and your local villagers that you have a drinking water system and that you're able to provide this kind of clean water. So there's many types of systems available. You also have quite a lot of things like pitcher systems. You have faucet-mounted systems. You have single-stage systems, dual-stage systems. There's many types of filtration products available. And so it might be, for you all, kind of complicated or maybe complex, or you might be, well, what do I need? So I have some tips on how to pick the right system. So the thing that you need to understand first is you need to know what's in your water, right? So I would always recommend, before you type or before you go and buy a water filter or a filtration system, get your water checked. And like I said before, you can talk to the Taiwan Environmental Protection Bureau. You can call them, you can get them to come or give you a sample kit, and you can take a water sample and get it tested. That's one good way. You can talk to SGS. There's some other labs that also do these types of tests. But you can contact them, and they'll give you a report, and they'll show you what's in your water. After you find out what's in your water, then you can identify what type of system you need. But generally speaking, I will always recommend a 5-stage RO system. This is going to be pretty much ideal for almost all cases. So it doesn't matter if you just have some chemicals in your water, or some heavy metals in your water, or you have some bacteria, or whatever it is. No matter what it is, an RO system is going to remove it. So ideally speaking, we're always going to go with an RO system. Now, the next thing we need to think about is how big of a system do we want? Because there are RO systems that will produce, say, around 200 liters of water per day. For most families, that's sufficient, especially if you're just talking about drinking water. But some households are much bigger. You have more family members. Maybe you have several families living together. And in these cases, maybe you need something slightly larger. So it's always good to understand what your needs are in terms of the amount of water you want to consume. And then you also need to look at your storage. So in most of these RO systems, the production or the flow rate of the water from the system is very, very slow. It takes forever for the water to come out of the system. It's very slow. And in these cases, you are generally going to be producing around maybe 0.1 liters per minute. So if you want to fill, let's say, one of these glasses on the table here, it'll take you roughly 1 minute to sit there and wait for the water to come out. Okay, so generally speaking, on an RO system, you're going to need a storage tank. And so the storage tank, depending on how much water you're using on a daily basis, you might need a slightly larger tank. So they come in 8-liter sizes, 12-liter sizes, 20-liter sizes, 100-liter sizes. So you can have many different sizes of tanks that are available to store that purified water. And then I would say the most important thing to do when you're buying a drinking water system is you want to check the certifications and the approvals. Now, when we talk about reverse osmosis systems, the gold standard in terms of certification is NSF. This is an American lab regulatory agency, and they have a special certification specifically for RO systems, and that's the NSF 58. So if you're looking at an RO system and trying to decide if I should buy the 3M version or the BWT version or some other company's RO system, generally speaking, I would highly recommend that you look for the NSF 58 certification. If you look for that, you're almost guaranteed to get a very high quality system to deliver safe, clean water. Some other certifications that you can also look for are WRAS, WQA, which has a gold seal, and also the Red W. The Red W is the Australian watermark certification, so almost all products sold in either Australia or New Zealand, they require a watermark certification. The gold seal, that's another American agency called the Water Quality Association, and they also have a lot of testing and do these kinds of things. So if you find the gold seal, you're also kind of going to be guaranteed to have a good quality system. And the WRAS, that's the British certification. So for those of you who may have traveled to the UK or lived in the UK, you're going to find WRAS on many of the drinking water systems. Okay, so just a few last tips. These are the do's. These are the things that you want to do. So you always want to get your water checked. And especially if you have a water system in an apartment building where you have many residents living in the building, you have an overhead tank that might get cleaned every, say, 6 months or so. I know in my building, when I go downstairs in the elevator lobby, a lot of times I'll see a notice that says the water tank is going to be cleaned and, you know, check your water, or these kinds of things. And usually, after they've cleaned the water, the next day, it's black. It's gross. You definitely don't want to drink that stuff. And also, if you have a typhoon come through, a lot of times the typhoons will cause disruptions in the water supply. They'll have to shut the water off. And this will also create a case where you might have some contaminants getting into the water, or because they have to release the water from the reservoir, they'll actually open it up and they'll bypass the filtration systems. They'll just let the water go through the system, and this can cause all kinds of secondary contamination further down into the system. And then these are the things you want to do. So always make sure you check your water. The second thing that I would recommend is definitely install a drinking water purification system. I've just been talking about the RO systems. You definitely want to get something installed. There's a lot of things out there that are purported to be, filters that help your water. Or these kind. There's so many, special energy filters or hydrogen filters that are supposed to add some kind of, special things that cure cancer and these kinds of things. None of that stuff is real. I mean, I know many people like to think about it and talk about it, but this stuff it's not really scientifically proven. So generally speaking, I would always go for a purification system, which is a reverse osmosis. And the last thing that I recommend is try to get some filtration into your bathroom sinks and your showers. So a lot of people only think about their drinking water when they're thinking about the filtration. But it's very important to have proper filtration on your bathroom sinks as well. I mean, if you're washing your face, if you're brushing your teeth, maybe you're swishing your mouth. I mean, all that stuff that we talked about earlier, that's still in that water too. So if you're not filtering it out, you're still going to be getting exposed to it. So it's very important to put filtration systems into your bathroom as well. Now some don'ts. Okay, a big thing that I hear in Taiwan a lot is we boil the water so it's safe to drink. Boiling water kills bacteria and microbiological pathogens and these kinds of things, but it does not remove chemicals, and it does not remove heavy metals. So if you boil some water, let's say you have 1 liter of water, and within that water, we can go back to our water sample analysis, it had the nitrites, right? Remember the nitrites? 3.7 milligrams per liter. If you boil 1 liter of water that has 3.7 milligrams of nitrites, you're going to evaporate some of that water. As soon as the water starts boiling, some of the water will be converted into steam, and it'll go up into the air. Then, when the water cools down, you won't have 1 liter. You'll have maybe 0.99 liters of water, or 0.98 or 0.97. You will reduce the amount of water slightly. And what that does, it increases the concentration of the contaminant. So, if you're boiling water to make it safe, you might actually inadvertently be causing yourself more harm. So it's very important to understand that boiling water does not make it safe. If you're in an emergency, you're lost in the woods, or you're in a bad earthquake and you're stuck in a building, okay, if you can make a fire and you can boil the water for the sake of hydrating yourself, sure. But this should not be a daily practice that you're doing all the time. All right. The next thing that I would say is do not rely on your tap water or even bottled water for nutrients and minerals. I know a lot of people that are against reverse osmosis systems because they say, oh, it removes all the minerals, it removes all the nutrients. Well, I've done some looking at things like Evian and San Pellegrino and these fancy imported European Alp water and all this kind of stuff. The mineral content in the water is probably about 1% of the amount of water or the amount of minerals that you need. So if you're trying to get, let's say, calcium or potassium or some kind of mineral that you need for your health, eat some broccoli, okay? Eat some greens. We had a delicious lunch just now. You know, there's more minerals in that food that we just ate than you're ever going to get from drinking hundreds of liters of water. Okay? So it's a myth to think that all of your minerals and nutrients are coming from the water. That's simply not true. From the water, all we need is the H, the 2, and the O. Okay? So just keep that in mind. And lastly, I already mentioned this, but we don't want to ever use the water after there's been some kind of emergency. So after a typhoon, after a water shortage or a water, a shutdown, make sure that you give the system some time to calibrate, that some of this stuff gets flushed out. You don't want to be running this very dirty water through a reverse osmosis or for any kind of filtration system. You certainly don't want to be running it through your body, right? I always like to say, you can use a reverse osmosis, or you can remove, a filtration system to remove the contaminants, or you also have a very good set of filters right here. These are your kidneys. They do a great job, but they don't last too long, and it's very hard to replace them. So try to stay away from that stuff. Okay, just a few helpful resources for some of you who might be interested in learning more. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, that's the American CDC, they have lots of information about water, about drinking water, water filtration, domestic systems. You can go onto their website, do a simple search, and you can find lots of information about this. And then WQA, they have a very nice water treatment for dummies. It's a very good guide. It gives a lot of good information. It's really kind of simply stated. It's not overly technical, and it gives a good explanation of all the concepts that I've been talking about here. It also goes into things like water softeners, ultrafiltration systems, and some of the other types of disinfection systems that are available in the market. So very good resources, these two, and I highly recommend that you check those. I think with that, I will thank you so much for your attention. And I will open the floor to any questions that you all might have. Zhe.
Yeah, I'm curious. Is it a good idea to drink just purified water or cook the food with the purified water? Because I was told that the purifier usually take away all the minerals.
Right.
And our body needs the minerals.
That's right.
Yeah. So is it safe?
Of course it's safe. Yes. So I guess if you were to, I didn't bring a bottle of Evian. I always try to bring a bottle of Evian just to show you, how many minerals are actually in a bottle of Evian. So, you might have a little bit of manganese, you'll have a little bit of zinc, you'll have a little bit of calcium, some potassium. These are kind of the beneficial minerals that are in the water. Actually, our water treatment plants, they also will add some minerals to the water because they're afraid people, maybe they're just eating junk food all day and they're not getting some minerals. If you eat a balanced diet, if you eat greens, if you eat mushrooms, if you eat, like I said, broccoli, potatoes, carrots, any of these kinds of, have a very colorful meal. If you're doing that, you're getting more minerals than you need. I mean, you'll have so many minerals, most of your minerals will actually go out with the rest of the water every day. You're not getting the mineral that you think you're getting from your water. So it's not a concern to be stripping the minerals. And in fact, if you talk about minerals in the water in a household setting with appliances like washing machines, dishwashers, hot water heaters, tea kettles, coffee machines, the minerals are actually bad for that stuff because the minerals will start to coat the inside of the heater or the coffee machine, and it'll actually reduce the efficiency, require it to run more electricity, and in the end it'll cause it to fail prematurely. So generally speaking, yeah, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. That's not a concern.
Good to know.
Yes. Hi, Mr. Juice.
I have one question. As a Rotary Club for
Yes.
Rotarian, we are very important is helping the countries
Sure.
or other underdeveloped countries people
100%.
to get the cleaning water.
Yes, sir.
So our club, we do cooperate with Filipinos Rotary Club.
Okay.
So they helping them for their people.
Sure.
Not Manila, but outside.
I understand.
So
my question is, among the world currently, in terms of like the population percentage,
Sure.
we have about maybe 7-8 billion population.
That's right.
Worldwide. So how many people now there cannot get the safety cleaning water in the world?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. I would say that we here in Taiwan are very, very, very privileged. At the most we need to worry about a little bit of a trace metal that's in our water, and we can simply remove that with a system that we can buy down the street at the hardware store for not much money. It's a very common, easy thing for us to do here in Taiwan to make our water clean and safe. But there are probably close to 2 billion people, I would say 1/3 of the world's population, that gets their water from sources that are contaminated with human waste. That means people are using the bathroom in the water where they're also getting the water to drink, brushing their teeth with that water, washing their clothes with that water. The animals are in that water. So the water is extremely dirty. It's a very hazardous thing that they do. You have a lot of unfortunate children, adults alike, that have parasites, worms, all these types of things. Cholera is a very serious case now in places like Haiti and throughout kind of Central and Central Asia and throughout Africa and so on. So yeah, it's a big issue. What can we do with that? There's many things that we're trying to do nowadays. I mean, the products that are being used to serve these communities are manufactured, and in most cases, not all cases, but in many cases, I should say, a lot of the products that are going into these systems or these communities, these are products that I'm manufacturing. These are products that we're making here in the U.S. or sorry, in Taiwan and the U.S. and we're packaging these. We're selling them on to companies that are building bigger systems that go into these kinds of communities. So when they do well drilling, for example, they will drill a well in these kind of impoverished communities to get water from the underground. It's a bit safer. And they'll put it into tanks and then they'll run it through filtration systems. And a lot of times those filtration systems, are the same filtration systems that we're manufacturing here in Taiwan. So Taiwan is actually doing quite a lot, especially here in central Taiwan, Taichung, Zhanghua, and then also in the south, Kaohsiung, Pingdong. There's a lot of companies in this industry. So the Taiwan Water Association is very strong, and we have a trade show coming up in October. For those of you who are able to make it to Taipei, we're going to be at the World Trade Center, just next to Taipei 101, next to the Hyatt. And you'll be able to see some of the technology that's going in, some of the systems and the products that are being used to help relieve some of these types of underprivileged communities. Hi, Kyoko.
Hi. So my question is quite basic, but so the problem is, it seems to be the water gets contaminated from the reservoir when it goes all the trouble to your homes, right?
Correct.
Is that what's happening in the underdeveloped world as well? Yeah, my question would be, how can you sort of eradicate or curb the contaminants when the water is traveling to people's homes? Is there a technology to do that?
There is types of technology that can help with this problem. Generally speaking, when we talk about the contaminants entering the water after it's been treated, we call that last mile contamination. So the last mile of the pipe is where most of the contamination occurs. And so if you're talking about last mile contamination, maybe the building that you live in will have some kind of filtration system, a central filtration system that cleans the water, as it makes its way up into the building or to the apartments. So that's one way. We do a lot of disinfection with chlorine and chlorine derivatives like chloramine and chlorine dioxide. So these are introduced into the water to maintain what we call residual disinfection. So as the water flows, the chlorine stays in the water, and that prevents any kind of microbiological contamination. So generally speaking, when we're talking about getting sick, maybe you have an upset tummy or you feel sick, that's because of some kind of bacteria like coliform or E. coli. I mean, these are the kinds of more common ones. And if you look at the water systems, I don't know if we have one here in Evergreen, but I'm sure if we go to whatever the nearest school is, there's going to be a bunch of RO systems, and next to each one, if you guys take the time, you'll look and you'll see they'll have a little sheet that the water has been tested and checked, and generally they will be checking for coliform. Coliform is the most common form of bacteria here in Taiwan, and generally speaking, disinfection, these kinds of things, that's going to get rid of the coliform. So in communities where they don't have a big reservoir and they don't have a water treatment plant and lots of municipal or city piping bringing the water to the residents, they're literally just going and getting buckets and scooping water out of maybe a pond or a ditch in some cases, where again, they might be using the bathroom, right next to it. So for those cases, generally NGOs, these kinds of organizations will be going and they'll be drilling wells and bringing the water, putting them into storage tanks, keeping the water kind of sealed and using some kind of filtration system to then clean the water, and then they'll have a community access point where a homeowner or someone from the village can go and fill a can. Some of the companies we're working with in Europe right now have water ATMs. So they're actually selling these credits to the villagers, and then they have a system where they can go and they can put like an ATM card, like a debit card, they can put it into the machine, and then they can get, say, 5 liters or 10 liters or however much water they're trying to get, and then it deducts from their card. This is a very helpful way of kind of controlling how much water is taken out of the system and making sure that people are responsible with the water that they get. So there's lots being done, but there's still a lot to do. All right.
What is the cost associated with reverse osmosis?
Okay, the cost, sure. There are systems now in the market that you can buy without installation. So if you just want to buy an RO system off the shelf and take it home and install it yourself, you could probably get a system, maybe not a certified system, but you could get a system for, say, around 4,000 or 5,000 NT. If you want installation, if you want certification, then those systems are probably going to run you, closer to, say, 15,000 to 20,000 NT. So it really depends on the type of system you're purchasing. But I would say on the very low end, 4,000 or 5,000 NT. Some are even lower than that. But then you can also get systems that are in the 15,000 to 20,000 range. It used to be, if you go back, say, 15, 20 years, a reverse osmosis system would cost you easily 30,000, 40,000 NT. And some were even more expensive than that. But there's so many companies making these now, and there's a lot of companies like us that are producing a lot of the componentry that goes into these systems. So we've really kind of brought the cost down, made it more affordable.
So do you need to change the filter, etc.? So what is the cost of those filtration, let's say, membranes?
Oh, sure, yes. So I mentioned before that I would recommend a 5-stage system, The first stage is going to be a pre-filter, and the pre-filter you will generally replace about once every 3 to 6 months. When I first came to Taiwan back in 2013, I moved to Fengyuan, and I lived up on the mountain, up near Xingshe. You had to drive up this windy mountain road called Nanpengxiang. Very beautiful drive if you've ever been up there. And we lived in a little orange grove. There was an orange farm, and they had some cabins. And I lived in one of the cabins. The water there was not city water. They had dug a well, and they had brought the water up, and that water was underground water. And they had a community storage tank, and then they pumped the water to the cabins from there. And that water was pretty dirty. I remember when I put my first RO system in there, I was replacing my pre-filter about once a month. Yeah, so that stuff, depending on where you're getting your water from, it really depends on the quality of the water. The second and third stages are generally carbon filters, and when I say carbon, I mean activated carbon, and we're using coconut shells. So we're superheating the coconut shells, we're then fracturing them with high pressure steam, and we're creating a type of filtration media that's great for removing chlorine, taste, odor, some volatile organic compounds, these kinds of things. And then after we go through the carbon, we go into the reverse osmosis membrane. Now the carbon filters, if you're on city water and there's a lot of chlorine in the water, they're going to get saturated after about 6 months. And that's generally why there's 2 there. So you have one, and then the second one is kind of backup. And those, generally speaking, I would recommend to replace about once every 6 months, so twice a year. And a good way to think about it is a Chinese New Year, change your filters, right? And then, maybe Qingmingjie, change your pre-filter. A Duanwujie, change your pre-filter. And then at, Zhongqiujie, change your pre-filter. And then Duanwujie, change your carbon filters, right? And so you can usually try to remember changing the filters based on the holidays. And that's a good way to remember. And then the membrane itself, those membranes nowadays, they're made by DuPont, by Dow, they're very high quality. You probably can get away with, not having to replace it for, I'd say, maybe every 2 or 3 years. And then to kind of get an idea when you need to change it, I have a thing here. This is something that you all can get. It's a little tool. It's called a TDS meter. And so it's just a little sensor that measures the TDS of the water. And these are super cheap. You can get these on like Shopee for, maybe like Eat by Kwai or something like that. And so, basically you take this, you run a little bit of the water, you stick it into the cup, and it shows you what the TDS measure is. When the TDS measure starts to go up, when you start to see a big change, that's generally when you need to change the RO membrane. For our water here in Taichung, like I said, the Dongshu Reservoir and Fengyuan Water Treatment Plant, all this kind of stuff, the water is going to be between 100 and 110 TDS, and that's parts per million, milligrams per liter. And so after you run the water through an RO system, you're generally going to drop it down to around like 3 ppm. You can't get it 100% clean, but you can get it like 99% clean, right? And so you're going to see a TDS measure of, say, around maybe 3 or something like that, 3 to 7, something in there. And then, if you test this water, let's say every time you change your filters, so maybe, like I said, Qingmingjie, Duanwujie, Zhongqiujie, if you do your testing at these times and you start to see the water starting to kind of creep up, or the TDS level starting to go up, then you know it's a good time to replace your RO membrane. Anything else?
Okay, thank you, Adam.
My pleasure.
So you can ask a question after the meeting. The president, give the speaker.